All right. Hey, welcome to Operation End Times. I'm your Jedi warrior for Jesus, Ben Hellestead. It's December 1st. It's Saturday evening here in San Jose. We got a storm that's coming in. We already had a couple. We've had several days of rain. And the rain is continued, or is expected to continue through most of next week. I just want to welcome all my sisters and brothers out there in the body of Christ. You know, we are living in the most amazing of times. And, you know, there's all sorts of just great stuff that's going to be happening. And that's what I'm here to talk about, to share some knowledge. But I want to welcome everybody. If you're new to the channel, you know, hey, God bless you too. You know, may God's love and may Jesus Christ, my King, my Lord and Savior, pour His light and His love into your life, to you and through you, to all those around you, so that you can be a morning star too, and shine like a star and break the night. And lead people, you know, so that they can see the light. You know, that's how it works, you know. Jesus shining brightly to us and through us. You know, there's all sorts of stuff happening. Cool stuff. I want to give a shout out to my sister Anna over at... I always get it backwards, so, you know, maybe I'm dyslexic, but it's either 777AEJ or AEJ 777. But Sister Anna, and also another sister, Rachel, who's at Stirring the Deep. You know, they've been coming up with some really good videos lately that I believe are just, you know, right on the money, you know, as far as what's unfolding in front of us in these end times. But a special, you know, tip of the hat to Sister Anna. You know, she's had all sorts of stuff. And her last couple of videos, you know, she was talking about the planets, you know, the sun, the moon. And that's kind of what I'm going to talk about. And, you know, I'm going to use the A word, astrology, you know. And I will throw this out here only once. And hopefully nobody will post anything too negative. But I personally don't practice astrology. I don't worship the stars. You know, they were created by God for signs in the heavens to us. So I don't worship the sun or stars, and I don't practice or study astrology. But that being said, you know, God gave me a powerful ability of discernment, and that doesn't mean I have to be stupid as to how astrology works. You know, I can look at how other people that, you know, practice the stuff, what they're saying is going on, and I will relate some of that to you. Because it's important. Very important. So, the first thing I want to talk about is yada, 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 yada. A yod. Y-O-D. Yod. Because, what is it? There's a yod that's going to happen on 12/21. A yod is an astrological alignment in the heavens mapped up against the zodiac dial, the Mazzaroth. And you know what? Yods happen all the time. You know, they could happen on any given day. But what a yod is it's an alignment of three heavenly bodies. You know, could be a planet or some stars. And you know, I'm going to throw this out here. Like I said, I don't practice astrology, so I'm not an astrology master. So if I get something slightly wrong or I don't know something, hey, no big surprise, because I'm not claiming to be a master of it. But a yod is an alignment of three planetary bodies. So if you look at this diagram, you know, three heavenly bodies in alignment forms a triangle. So this is what we call an equilateral triangle over here, where all the angles of the triangle are 60 degrees. A yod has two angles of 60 degrees and an angle of 30 degrees. And you know, I'm not sure what the name of that triangle is. Isosceles possibly. But it's a raised triangle. It's taller than an equilateral triangle. And, you know, in astrology terms, if there was an equilateral triangle alignment on an astrology chart between three heavenly bodies, probably whoever's given the reading would say, you know, based on the planets, because every planet means something, you know, in astrology. Like Mars is war, Venus is love, Saturn is government, Pluto is wealth and power, Jupiter is religion and higher thinking, I think. But if you had an equilateral triangle with three heavenly bodies, an astrologer might give you a reading based on those three planets, but the reading would somehow reflect some form of balance, because an equilateral triangle is perfectly balanced with three angles of 60 degrees. But see, what happens with a yod over here is it's two angles of 60 and one of 30. And you know, I may have this, yeah, 60. Why am I thinking the angles inside of a triangle have to equal, what the hell would it be? What, 180? You know, because that is 120, 150 degrees. You know, if I'm getting the degrees wrong on this yod, but I know every website I went to, the yod was a tall, steeplized triangle. But anyway, in a yod, it's not balance. It's the way an astrologer does a reading on a yod. Okay, put this over here. The astrologer takes the two planets that form the base. Okay, and they then channel their energies upwards towards the third planet that's at the steeple, the top of the yod. So it's a way of projecting energy through a focal point. And it releases, and I'll explain that in a minute too. But that's kind of how astrologers would do a reading on a yod. And like I said, yods happen all the time, but we got a special one happening on December 21st. And it's a yod between Saturn and Pluto that form the base. Here it is. Okay, this is what's happening on the 21st. Saturn and Pluto are on the base, and the top is Jupiter. And Jupiter is actually aligned with a star, which is Aldebaran, which is known as the material eye of the constellation of Taurus, of the bull. You know, because the other star, which is known as Ain, A-I-N, that's known as the spiritual eye. But Aldebaran is also called the follower. But that's the yod that's happening on the 21st. So, if you do some research, you'll find out the last time this particular yod formed was back in 1989. And all sorts of crazy stuff happened around the world in that year. That was the year the Ayatollah Khomeini died. That's the year that Lech Wałęsa, I may not be saying his name right, but he was the head of the Polish Socialist Party, but he led an uprising which freed Poland from Russia. And man, there was a couple other... Oh, yeah, that was when China massacred all the people in Tiananmen Square and became a bloodthirsty, you know, ungodly dictatorship or whatever the heck they are over there in China, you know, and started taking over the world with their ruthless activities. So anyway, that's kind of where it is in astrology terms. Let me tie this back to Sister Anna, you know, because she sent me a video. You know, the Mayans, they think that their calendar ends on the 21st, but there's a video, and I think I linked up to it, but this old Mayan dude talks about how on the 21st, the Earth, the Sun, is going to be lined up with the galactic center, which is the gate of God in the zodiac, which is right off the tip of the arrow of Sagittarius, you know, under the feet of Ophiuchus, and with Scorpius to the right side. But that's where the birthing zone is, and NASA, you know, they already released recently. I'm sorry, I got some hair in my face, but NASA released recently that they know there's a black hole in the center of the Milky Way. Now they think there's a second black hole forming, and it's sending out some kind of energy pulse, some kind of super quasar X-ray energy pulse. Now, is that going to hit us? I don't know. I'm not a rocket scientist, but it's all just a little too coincidental, because all these end-time prophecies, you know, whether it's the Mayans or even Christians or Jewish people or Hindus or whoever, you know, they talk about this energy pulse coming, and life as we know it changing, and where, you know, that's where you got to have your head screwed on straight, because you're either going to be on the right side of life or on the wrong side of life, you know, when this energy pulse happens. But it's kind of weird that NASA just found 2 black holes that are sending out some kind of energy pulse from that birthing zone as we speak. And, you know, we're now approaching the 3rd, which is the first of these alignments, you know, that matches up with the Pyramid of Giza. And, you know, I kind of talked about that in my last video. But what's interesting is Sister Anna was kind of tying it together, is the Mayans are talking about some kind of energy, some kind of vibration manifestation, and even, you know, in the Bible it talks about a shout, thunderings, vibration, noise, trumpets, you know, some kind of energy release, you know, transforming everything in the twinkling of an eye. And so, you know, if you look at what a yod is in astrological terms, it's kind of that same concept, because you got Saturn and Pluto sending their energies to Jupiter as a focal point. And, you know, Saturn, once again, represents like governments and hierarchy, and Pluto is wealth and power and rule by secrecy, and Jupiter is like religion and higher thinking and kingship, you know. So all that energy gets shot out through Jupiter, and the way it works in a yod is the planet that's in opposition to Jupiter receives the energy to manifest as an expression, and that planet just happens to be, surprise, surprise, Venus. And Venus, you know, I've done my whole Venus conspiracy series, but Venus, you know, represents both love and hate. And that's what's going to happen, my friends, because if you listen to the Mayan prophecies, this energy burst, you know, if what you got inside of you is darkness and evil, if you're bitter and have hatred and jealousy and all that dark stuff, then you're going to manifest to that. And it's not going to be pretty, and it's not going to be good, and it's going to be painful. But if you've got your head screwed on straight, and you got God in your heart, and love on Jesus and love sitting on the throne of your heart, it's going to be wonderful. It's going to be glorious, man, because you're going to go the other direction and manifest in glory and light, you know. But, you know, a yod is fascinating. You know, I was just doing research on the yod. And a yod, when you look at this yod, right, it forms a Y, you know, which, you know, is the first letter of Yod, and Yod is the 10th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. It's the smallest letter. It represents humility, you know. It also represents the relationship of God's creation, man, because a Yod, the way it's written in Hebrew, is it starts with a dot, which symbolizes God's energy, and then it goes downward to form a Vav. And, you know, once again, that's tying into Sister Anna. She did a video called Noon Vav Noon. You know, Noon Vav Noon, where the Vav means he who is bent. You know, if you can believe that or not. You know, but bent means bowed over in humility. And you know what? I hope I'm as humble as the next guy. You know, I pray for humility all the time. But in the Hebrew alphabet, the Yod forms, it starts with a dot, goes downwards, which is heaven coming down to earth, and then it goes outward, which is through a doorway of humility, you know. And Jesus always says, I stand at the door, and he was the most humble guy there ever was. But the Yod basically symbolizes heaven and earth joined. And my friends, that's the glory that's coming, man. Is like Jesus taught us to pray in the Lord's Prayer. He said, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Let thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. You know, the Yod, you know, symbolizes creative power and God's authority. It's the smallest of the Hebrew letters. It's used the most in scriptures. It's the atom of letters. Every consonant in the Hebrew alphabet has a Yod in it. And you know what? If I'm slightly off here, I'm not an expert in Hebrew language either, you know. But a Yod is the beginning and the end of all consonants, and therefore is the beginning and the end of all words. And Jesus is the Word, and he said, I am the Alpha and the Omega, baby. And the Yod is the first letter of Yahweh, and it's the first letter of Yahshua, you know. The Yod is called the geometry of creation. You know, just super exciting stuff. You know, a Yod, the number 10, because it's the 10th letter, it signifies completion. You know, there was 10 generations from Adam to Noah. There was 10 generations from Noah to Abraham. There were 10 things created. You know, I think it was on the first day and on the last day. But anyway, a yod in and of itself, you know, is, you know, just amazing. It's known in astrology as either the finger of God or the finger of fate. Or it's sometimes called a projection triangle. A projection triangle. So energy, thought being projected and manifested, you know. What makes this particular yod coming up on the 21st so super interesting is that Jupiter is aligned with Aldebaran, which is one of the 4 royal stars in the heavens. There's 4 royal stars. There's Regulus, which is in the constellation of Leo. There's Antares, which is in the constellation of Scorpio. And there's Fomalhaut, which is in Aquarius, I do believe it is. But the 4 royal stars, you know, Aldebaran being the other one, they're in the 4 corners of the constellations, the zodiac, the Mazzaroth, 4 different directions. And people say they represent the 4 archangels, archangels, however you want to look at it, you know, of God. And you know what? There's some debate on which stars match up with which angels. Some people believe that Aldebaran represents the angel Michael, which that in and of itself would be very interesting because Michael plays deeply into the end time events. But you know what? I'm going to just tell you personally, this is the assignments that I give them. Michael actually connects up with Regulus, the king star in the constellation of Leo. Raphael, the angel Raphael, is the red star Antares in Scorpio. Gabriel is Fomalhaut in Aquarius. And guess what? The angel Phanuel is what's represented by Aldebaran. And Phanuel, you know, Michael means he who is like God. Phanuel means the face of God. You know, and, you know, I think that to me kind of, you know, makes sense, you know, because those of us, you know, in these end times, Jesus begs us. He pleads with us. He says, seek me. Seek the truth. Because Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And He's the light of the world. So if you seek the truth, you will find Jesus. If you seek Jesus, you will find the truth. You know, they're linked. They're inseparable. And what you will also fall into is love. You know, Jesus' love for you. And you'll find out that you can love everybody around you as much as Jesus loves you. And you will love Jesus just as much. You know. But Jesus is our advocate, our go-between, because we can't stand in front of God the Father. And it's only thanks to Jesus, you know, His salvation, the fact that we're redeemed, where we're washed clean, you know, through the repentance cycle, you know. And we now walk in righteousness, you know, in all humility. But we can stand upright in front of God in white robes, clean robes, sons of God. You know, and you know, that is the miracle, my friends, that is about to unfold. Is, you know, those of us that are seeking the truth and seeking God, you know, it's a long journey. It doesn't happen overnight. But we all know we've been going through this purification, you know, repentance cycles, as many as needed, to wash ourselves clean, to come into a relationship with God where we have confessed everything we've ever done, and we've acknowledged that we're nothing at all, and that God is everything, you know. And if you come into that relationship with God, then God is your friend, and Jesus is your best buddy, and Jesus is the face of God as well. You know, the archangels, you know, I think they all work directly for Jesus. So they kind of, you know, just like we become like Christ, they're all like Christ too. They're all different aspects of Christ. But Phanuel, the face of God. That's what we're all about to see, the glory of God, where we can stand in front of God and, Jesus is right there smiling at us. But it's all coming up on 12/21. So anyway, that was pretty much it on the Yod. The only other thing that I really had pressing on me, the Yod, like I said, it forms a Y. So if you look at it this way, a Yod, even in astrology terms, it is what they call a fork in the road, where it's a decision point. It's where you meet destiny or your fate. Because like I said, they call it God. It could be called the finger of God, but it could also be called the finger of fate. But you make a decision on who you're going to serve, and you either make the right choice or the wrong choice. But that's where the great divide happens, my friends. And hopefully that decision point is still open, because at some point in time, people's ability to make that choice is going to come to an end. And, somewhere down the line, maybe as soon as the 21st, as this Yod energy manifests itself, if you maybe it's like a snapshot token. So, you may think, oh, I don't need to make a choice, but I can tell you right now, there's no neutral ground. There's no gray area. And God can see into each and every heart. He knows each and every single person's heart. So, you know what? If you got more darkness in you, if you got more evil in you than you got good, then if the evil is burnt out of you, there's nothing left, because you were mostly evil. Whereas if you have seen the light and you're walking towards God and the truth, towards Jesus Christ, that you will be filled with love. And then even if there's a little bit of dust left on you, some cobwebs or whatever, you might be a little singed, but you're going to come out all right. But God's Healer 7 just did a video that I hit the like button on, where he was, even Sister Anna's been talking about how she's seen the skies parting, and that's what they talked about in their latest video. They said Jesus is going to split the skies. Well, you know what? The Yod in the sky is kind of a split. It's a decision point, a fork in the road, my friends. So that leaves us with my final point, my friends, is we live in the most amazing times, and I'm trying to let love flow like a river from my heart to all those around me, man, because God has blessed me tremendously. And I feel honored because God has found me worthy to serve the kingdom. So I serve him in any way, shape, or form that he wants. He just has to put it on me, But this decision point, hopefully many of us have made it already. We've chosen Jesus Christ. There's plenty of sons of God out there, people walking around with good in their hearts. Even atheists, if they got love in them, they may not realize it, but they're so close to Jesus. They just got to, have that final distortion disappear to where they can see the truth and say, oh yeah, hey Jesus, I'm in, But, some of us haven't made that decision. Some of us are walking around in denial, in bubble-ized existences where you don't even have to believe in God, But the decision point, when you make decisions in life, that's called confronting, And confronting, we have to confront every day, make decisions, and they can be scary, You can be afraid of having to make a choice, especially if it goes against the grain. And right now, making the choice to walk with God goes against the grain of the world. There's nothing in the world that makes you want to walk with God. As far as society, everything's anti-God. They make fun of you. Oh, you're a Jesus freak, But the final point I want to get to is this energy wave, the manifestation, the finger of God. And the finger of God's in the Bible. God wrote the 10 Commandments with his finger. They drove out demons using the power of the finger of God. So the finger of God, in the painting in Italy, it's on the Sistine Chapel. It represents God's creation, right? So the point here is both good and bad are going to manifest, And only God knows how it all works. You know, I'm not God. You know, Jesus doesn't reveal everything to me, and I just can only reveal what he allows me to reveal. But one thing you hear all over the place, you hear it in the Bible over and over again, you know, I think it's 365 times, which is, have no fear. No fear. And even in the world of man, the kingdom of Satan, you will hear the phrase, no fear. You know, like extreme sports and whatnot, they have I think there's shirts that say that, no fear, you know. But the truth of it is, we're now in a time, man, because things are already manifesting. I already told you, the election, you know, the 2012 election was a manifestation of fear as well, you know. Everybody was afraid. Some people were afraid of Obama, other people were afraid of Mitt Romney. But nowadays, there's also so many things to be afraid of, you know. Earthquakes, volcanoes, war, disease, you name it, you know. But it's like a spiral, you know, of darkness, because it feeds itself. Fear feeds the dark side. And if you're living in fear, you're on the dark side. But it gets kind of complicated. But I'm going to try and kind of straighten it out a little bit, you know. Because even if you are on God's side, fear is there, you know. Because the beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. Which means you're acknowledging that God is omnipotent and all-powerful, and that you're nothing without him, and that if you go against him, that's a hopeless battle, and you will be destroyed. That only destruction awaits anybody that walks away from God. And that's something to be afraid of. But the beauty is, God tells you to fear him, and that's the beginning of wisdom. But just because you fear God doesn't mean you're walking with God. The Bible actually has plenty of examples of people who knew about God, feared God, and they still made the decision, because we have freedom of choice, where they said, I'm not going to follow God, and I'll take my chances. I'll capitulate with the enemy, Satan, you know, and because he's promising me all sorts of stuff too, and I'll just hope that things work out over there. But that's a fool's folly, you know. But if you fear God and start walking towards God, and you get a relationship with God, Jesus, he breached the gap, and now God's your loving Father. And even though you fear God, you stop fearing God, because he's your loving Father, and Jesus is your friend and Lord and loves you. They both love you so much that you're not walking around in fear of God all day long. You're walking around in the love of God, you know. And then you have no fear of the outside world, whether it's storms or, you know, somebody shooting at you. No matter what it is, it doesn't matter, because God is always at your side. Nobody can stand against you. And you know what? This world, your eyes are open to the spiritual realities of it. And this life, this bag of skin that we're existing in, doesn't mean anything in the big picture of eternity, man. You know, so there's nothing to fear at all. But like I said, Satan, you know, he's a master of duplication. So even on his side, they use that phrase all the time, no fear. And that's where you see extreme guys, you know, where they say, live like there's no tomorrow, no fear, you know, like jump off a cliff, do crazy stuff, no fear. But it's a false no fear. It's fake, you know. And another way to get rid of fear is not to put yourself into a bubble where you say God doesn't even exist. And I don't need to fear something that doesn't exist. Because, once again, you're setting yourself up in a delusion, a distortion field, where you're not feeling any fear. You're just walking around, no fear. But what I will tell you, my friends, is there's going to come a day, you know, where everybody has to be held accountable. And, you know, God's going to be looking into every man's heart. But if you have not made a relationship with God, you're going to be shaken in your boots, because that's everybody's initial contact with God, is to be in awe and in fear of who he is, because he's just so great and magnificent. But if you walk down the road a little bit and you got Jesus at your side as your advocate, you've patched up that whole relationship. And once again, you're living in love, not fear. But, you know, if you're on the dark side, you know, don't fool yourself sitting here saying, I have no fear. Because I will tell you, my friends, that as God manifests himself here on earth, you're going to be shaking in your shoes, man. So, you know, that's what you need to think about, is, do you fear God? And I pray that you do. All right. This is Operation End Times. I'm Ben Hellestead, your Jedi warrior for Jesus. You know, if you got any questions, just send them on in. You know, try and keep all your comments civilized and polite, you know. People that are rude, I probably would, you know, delete your comment or whatever. But I believe in letting people say their minds, you know, but just try and be nice about it. once again, I want to say hi to all my brothers and sisters out there. God bless you all. All right. Thanks a lot.